Hello everybody, so a few days ago Monster Hunter Rise, the base game, came out on consoles and Game Pass, so we have a lot of new players that are wondering what's the best way to progress with Bow. So that's why I'm making this video. I'm gonna give you a progression guide from a fresh new save all the way to the final story boss, so that's gonna be just before endgame. And so a couple things to know before we get started. Bow for progression is infamously difficult, meaning that in low rank and early high rank, Bow is pretty bad, so it's gonna be hard to play with this weapon. But I'm gonna try to give you the best builds and advice to make the most out of it. And secondly, Rise on console is a bit weird because it's just the base game, but they included the change that they made to the weapon in Sunbreak. So Bow got nerfed a little bit. So the Bow that you're playing in the console Rise is different than it was on PC and Switch. Mostly what they did is that they nerfed Robo a little bit. So for endgame it's not gonna change too much, but for the progression we rely on a Robo that I'm gonna talk about later. So yeah, progression is a little bit harder on console than it was in PC and Switch. However, don't worry about it too much. I just did a brand new save with just base Rise and it was completely fine with Bow. And in endgame, Bow is also very strong. Still one of the best, if not the best weapon in base Rise. So don't worry about it too much. So we're gonna start at the beginning, low rank, 1 star, the very beginning of the game. There's not too much to do right now, but the one thing I'll say is that in your game on console, you have access to the Defender weapons. The Defender weapons are weapons that are very strong for low rank and early high rank, and those are made to basically rush through the base game so that you're ready early for the expansion. I decided not to use them because I think that it kind of defeats the purpose of playing the base game since you don't have access to the expansion yet. But if you want to use them, this is how you obtain them. You can either craft it, or easier yet, you can go talk to the cat next to your item box and claim all the DLC. You should be seeing a clip of me doing it right now. So you claim the DLC at the cat and then you get the Defender weapon. If you want to start with the Defender weapon, that's gonna give you a big boost to your damage, so it's gonna make low rank very easy, but it's already very easy, so it's up to you. You can decide to use it or not. There's really nothing to say about the 1 star low rank quest. It's just gathering quest. You don't even need to shoot your weapon, so I'm directly gonna jump to 2 and 3 stars. So 2 and 3 stars to me has been the most frustrating to play, because that's the point of the game where your Bow is the least enjoyable to play. You have very little stamina and your actual arrows do almost no damage. So on the screen is the set that I recommend at this stage, and you can make most of it at 2 stars except for the chest. The chest you're gonna have to wait to be 3 stars to make, but that's fine. Now, a few recommendations. Your damage is so low at this point of the game that I would recommend to shoot your Bow as least as possible. You see me on the screen, every time I have the chance I use my melee, because your melee is your best damage at this point. Abuse Wyvern Ride. If you see another monster, try to see if you can mount it to do damage to the actual monster. Try to use environmental damage. If you can get 2 dogs, they're gonna be doing more damage than you. So you understand what I'm saying is at this stage of the game your Bow does very little damage. So you need to find the chance to use it as least as possible basically. Now at 3 stars, as soon as you get to 3 stars, you unlock the Dodge Bolt switch skill. I highly suggest that as soon as you get it, you replace your sidestep, so your dash, with the Dodge Bolt. So Dodge Bolt does a couple things that sidestep doesn't do. The first one is that your dash now has a melee attack, so when you dash into a monster, you're going to be doing melee damage, which, as I said earlier, is your biggest damage at this stage of the game. So that's one thing. The second thing is that it consumes less stamina, so you're gonna see your stamina usage going much better. And the third thing is that the dash is now a counter. So when the monster attacks you, you're going to counter the enemy attack and take no damage. And on top of that, you're going to increase your charge level to 3, so the max at this stage. The only drawback from Dodge Bolt is that when you dash without countering anything, you don't increase your charge level, but you do maintain your charge level. So if you're at max, you're gonna stay at max. That's a very little price to pay to get all the other benefits. And that's why from now on and until forever basically, Dodge Bolt is going to be better in every way than sidestep. So that was 2 and 3 stars, so now with this build you should be able to get to 4 stars, and 4 stars is quite nice. You have access to Tobikadachi, so we're gonna craft these bows and we're gonna craft these legs. Tobikadachi is a nice upgrade from the Kamura bow. It has a little bit more roll, but it also has positive affinity, and it has an element, so your damage should get a nice bump up. So the next thing I'll mention is that the next switch skill we're going to unlock is going to be aerial aim. To unlock this switch skill, you need to be crafting or upgrading, I believe it's 7 different unique bows. So it's unlikely you'll get it at this stage, but it's possible. And if you don't get it now, it's nice to get it as soon as possible. Now with this build, you should be able to beat the next urgent quest, which is Magna Malo, as you see me doing on the screen. It's going to be difficult because your bow doesn't do a ton of damage, but it's possible. On this quest, I think I was able to kill it in 5 minutes, 4-5 minutes. Granted, I know the game pretty well, so I know his moveset, but it's definitely doable. Remember to use the other monsters as much as possible. Wyvern Rise, environmental damage, use all the endemic that you can, and you should be able to defeat him even with the build that you have right now. Now, congratulations, you made it to 5 stars, so you're almost done with low rank in the village. 5 stars and 6 stars is actually quite a nice buff for low rank. You get access to the upgrade to the Kadashi bow, so I suggest you do that. At 5 star, you also unlock the fighter food skill. So if you talk to the chef, she's going to give you a quest called a secret ingredient. And once you've done this, you unlock the Dango fighter food skill, which is a very important food for bow players. Fighter gives you a buff equivalent to Constitution 2, and along with Constitution 4 on your armor is going to max out your internal stamina reduction. Some stamina reduction in Rise works a little bit differently than in World. I have a video that talks about all the changes, but to make it simple, you now have 2 different stamina reduction. You have internal and external stamina reduction, and they both stack. So I'm not gonna go in depth into it now, that's not the video for it, but I'm gonna link in the description the video that talks about stamina reduction. Additionally, at this stage of the game, you should be able to craft enough bows to unlock aerial aim. This switch gear is pretty good at this stage of the game. In endgame it's not used too often, but early in the game your neutral damage is pretty bad, so aerial aim is a nice burst damage. I suggest you unlock it as soon as possible. And one last thing before we move on, at this point of the game you now have access to talisman melding, so just the first talisman, nothing crazy, but you can meld for a Constitution talisman, which is going to give you Constitution 1. So I suggest you do that because you're gonna keep the talisman for a while. With the build that you have on, you should be able to comfortably get into high rank. For now, we're gonna keep the same weapon, but we're gonna change the whole armor set. The first monster you're gonna hunt is Izuchi, which should be pretty easy for you, and that's gonna give you Constitution 2 on the arms. The second monster you're gonna hunt is the Tetranodon. You want the chest, you want the helmet, and you want the legs. This is going to give you normal up 3, which is for bow the biggest damage buff you can have. You want to max out your shot type damage up. That's your biggest damage skill. Once you have that, you can chase the Lagon Bee for the waist, which is going to give you Constitution 2. At 5 star, the only difference is that we're gonna replace the weapon. We're now gonna be using the Yekla bow. The Yekla bow is a raw bow, but the special thing about it is that it has a natural charge level 4. So what that means is that until now, most of the bows that you had 3 charge level. And to unlock the 4th charge level, which is the maximum charge, you need a specific skill that you don't have access to yet. Some bows, like the Yekla bow, already have the charge level 4 by default, which is very important to have on bow. The reason we don't use another one is because usually they have bad stats, but this one has very decent stats for this stage of the game. So we're gonna be using that bow, even though earlier I said that in console Rise the raw bows were not as good, it's still going to be your best bet at this stage of the game. Now at 6 stars of high rank you get a pretty significant upgrade in your armor set. We're gonna keep the same bow, but you should be able to upgrade it to Yekla bow 2. But the armor set is going to be changing completely. you now have access to the Vaik armor set by using the farm. There's an item that you get at the farm that allows you to craft this armor, and that gives you normal up on both the arms and the waist. So we're gonna be using the arms and the legs for this, and then the Xenogray legs and the Kadashi helmet, along with the Ludroth chest piece. This should give you a nice bump in both damage, but also stamina, because you gain stamina surge 2 that you didn't have before. So that's gonna be a nice, comfortable upgrade. Also, at this stage of the game, 6 star, you unlock the last switch skill. There's a quest that you can do to unlock the Absolute Power Shot. Now, what I will say about this, Absolute Power Shot is a very good switch skill, and in endgame, you will almost always have it. What it does is that it replaces your power shot with a power shot that does KO damage. So now your power shot will do KO damage, but you will consume a lot more stamina. At this point of the game, unless you're very, very confident in your stamina usage, I wouldn't recommend using it. Yes, the KO is very nice, but the stamina consumption is too high for this stage of the game. Feel free to try it, but I would stay away from it for now. So now you're at 7 stars and you're getting very close to the end of the story. The final boss is pretty close and you'll be endgame pretty soon. You have 2 options. The first one is to keep the same set that you've been using and just slightly upgrading it. This should be just enough to finish this rank and beat the final boss and get to endgame, but you have better options available. So the first build I'm gonna show you is a slight upgrade of the build we've been using. And as you can see, we have the final upgrade of the Yekla bow, which is now called the Herald Battle Bow, and we have the Rachna legs, which are very good for bow. However, you now also have access to the Mighty Bow Feather that you can craft. This helmet will give you the Mighty Bow skills, which will unlock every charge level on every bow. In base Rise, this is the only way you can get the Mighty Bow skill, so this armor set will be on every single endgame build, so it's a good thing if you start doing it now. If you decide to craft the Mighty Bow Feather, now is a good time to start switching to elemental bows, which will be better standing endgame. So you can craft an elemental bow for each element, or at least the element that you need, and I'm gonna show you right now on the screen a list of all the rapid elemental bows that you can start crafting. So my recommendations, if you don't want to rush to the end game, is to spend some time here to craft this armor set that I'm showing you on the screen right now, using the Mighty Bow Feather, and to craft a rapid bow of each element. This will be a very good base to not only finish the story, but to start building up to the end game builds after the final boss. So if I were you, I would take the time now to start crafting this, so you have an easier time starting endgame. With this set and those bows, you should comfortably be able to handle the 7-star quests and the final boss. And once you've done that, I'm gonna link another video in the description that has the endgame bow build for your version of the game, so you can start working on those. I hope this video was helpful. Unfortunately, bow is still very difficult for progression, so even with those builds, you're gonna have a harder time, I think, with bow than with some other weapons, but it's still doable and it's still, it's still achievable. That's it for me. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below and I'll try to answer it. See you next time.